All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Horseshoe Talk, an Indianapolis Colts show. Almost said the wrong name again. Hey, that's what happens when you have 4 or 5 different shows in one day.
Yep.
But hope everybody's doing good. Going to cover some stuff on the Indianapolis Colts today. Colts had a preseason game over the weekend against the Detroit Lions. They came up a little bit short in that game, but I don't put a whole lot of stock into preseason. I mean, if you look when the Colts used to have Peyton Manning, how many years did we go 0-4 in preseason?
Oh
And
yeah.
then we go 13-3, 15-1, 12-4, or something like that in the regular season. So the Colts have never been a team that I don't think really even tries to win in the preseason. Uh, I think their philosophy more is just get through it without trying to get without people getting hurt, and then filling out your roster, seeing some stuff from your young players. But
Yeah. Should
we're
be.
joined by my dad, Tony Gonzalez, like always. I think Tony Hollingsworth is going to join us here in a few. But what'd you think of coming out of that preseason game?
Well, first of all, saying they came up short is exactly right because they got beat 27-26 and they got stopped on a failed 2-point conversion to try to win the game. So definitely came up short. But yeah, I don't put much stock in that stuff. Uh, did a little research. The quarterback, Ellinger, looking real good right now. I think he's making a tough decision for the coach, which I think they'll take 3 people. I mean, if they don't keep Ellinger the way he's playing right now, then they know he's not the guy. So, or could not be a future guy for them. So, but I think he'll be there. He's playing really well. Other two wide receivers really stood out. Desmond Patman had 5 catches for 103 yards, caught a 50-yard touchdown bomb. And then Michael, I think it's Strahan, had 3 catches for 45 yards. What I like about him, he's got about a 6'5" frame. So the Colts are definitely, and they got a couple other people on the roster, and not you can count Pittman that are 6'4", 6'5". So they're getting some bigger targets, and I think that's good. So them were the kind of standouts for the Colts in the as far as receivers and stuff, and in that game offensively.
Yeah, that Strachan, he was the one they just brought back from the physically unable to perform list. I think last week. But let's talk about Ellinger for a minute. How's it going, Tony?
Hey, good. How about you, Chris? Tony, good to see you again. You
Good to
know,
see you.
my fellow Tony makes me proud that there's two of us on here.
But Sam Ellinger, all the reports come out. I'll be honest, I didn't watch much of the preseason game. Actually, I think we were at the fair at the time the game was going on. But I think from all the reports, Ellinger looked real well. Do you think there's a chance that Ellinger might be the QB of the future for the Colts?
I do.
Yeah, I think so, and it says a lot too because Frank even noted. I don't know if you happen to catch it in those reports that Nick Foles. I guess his arm hasn't been the same since that 2017 Super Bowl. I don't know if he said there's some muscle weakness or some injury to it or something like that, but his arm was only at like 60-70%. So his arm hasn't been the same. But yeah, Frank actually praised how well Sam Ellinger did. He did really well as far as I think he only had a couple incompletions, a couple touchdowns, no picks, and ran the offense really well, which, I know we talked about it last week. I really liked him at Texas. And again, when they picked him, I was like, I don't see him being an immediate starter. I don't want him to be thrown to the wolves, but I do feel like this is a guy, especially with Frank's, history of he likes he likes athletic quarterbacks that can move the ball, similarly like how he loved Carson Wentz. Nick Foles isn't exactly the most athletic guy out there, but he's got a decent size arm. He can move if he needs to. It's like this kind of this the stereotypical guy that you would want to fit Frank Reich's system to be able to make this work the best. So yeah, I think he's going to be the quarterback of the future. It's just how much do they want to invest around him? And kind of like we talked about, if this is Frank's, potential last year, again, just because I think majority of us all agree that we're worried about the wide receiver room, if they can at least get that shored up for Sam, I very easily could see him being the next franchise quarterback. I don't see him being the guy that is going to be like a top 10 quarterback, but I could easily see him being like 13, 14. Like he's above average, but he's I don't know if he'll be great type of quarterback.
I think he could be a quarterback that you can win games with and you can compete in the playoffs with, especially with the running game. Especially if you have the healthy Jonathan Taylor and the way Frank Reich talked at that press conference I saw, I think we all expect a lot of handing the ball off to Taylor this year because he talked like Taylor might break a lot of records this year. He was talking like he's really going to run that ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope the Colts do because of that fact. We don't have the receiving core to just air it out all the time. But if you get that running game going, that's going to help them younger receivers get open because they're going to start bringing people up in the box to protect against Taylor. And you can get some better one-on-one matchups, especially for a guy like Pittman who's going to see a lot of double teams. You get that run game open or going, it might open up some looks for him.
Yeah, I agree. And again, that's the one thing I'm worried about is the run game is going to be spectacular. Again, can they get the left tackle figured out? Because again, we haven't really figured that out since Costanzo has left. And the only bad part about that is you become a one-trick pony when you do that. It's like, okay, we know they're limited in throwing. They're going to run it. We just got to stuff the middle. And don't get me wrong, Jonathan Taylor is a heck of a running back. But kind of like, Dallas has seen with Zeke, those first couple of years, if you try to ride that running back the entire time, you look at Zeke, the last 2 years, he hasn't been the same since they got him in 2016. He looks like a shell of his former self, and I don't want to see Jonathan Taylor go down that road either. And again, a lot of that was because not necessarily they didn't have the wide receivers, but they wanted to try to protect Dak. And again, they had it. You have a better chance whenever you run it because you control time of possession. You control time of possession with as good as their defense is. Even if the defense is lacking, they can make up for it because their defense isn't on the field as long.
Yeah, and it's just like with a human body. If you get an injury, like you injure your elbow, and then you're going to end up injuring another part of your body because you're going to overcompensate for your injury. Well, and that's just what you're saying with the running back. If you use them too much, then you could end up in a situation where you're only going to have him at his prime for 3 or 4 seasons instead of maybe 6 or 7 or 8. And running backs don't have a long life in the NFL anyway. So that is one thing, but for some reason, right, we've seen it in the past. Sometimes he don't use Taylor enough. He'll go in like he's going to run the ball, and then we get away from it, or he'll take Taylor off the field and put in one of the other running backs, and it's like you don't see Taylor for maybe 7 or 8, 9 plays, and it's like I understand you don't want to use him too much, but you also have to use him.
I think we're going to see Hines and Lindsey on the field some too. I think that they're not. I don't think they're showing their offense what they're going to be doing in the regular season, of course. So I think we'll see some change ups. I think he will run the football a lot, but I still think they're smart enough to know that they're not going to overuse Taylor. So, and he was speaking about the left tackle position. What I've been reading is it looks like right now the inside track for the left tackle is going to be veteran Mike Pryor. Will probably be the left tackle.
They're saying he's going to be the starting left tackle, and then Ball State graduate Pinter is probably, from what I was reading today, is probably going to be the starting right tackle. And Pinter got quite a few. He got quite a bit of playing time last year with the Colts as well. But he's not a bad offensive line. I watched him play a lot here at Ball State, of course. Yeah. Did you see where Matt Ryan said that he plans on playing 6 more seasons?
I mean, it's possible. It honestly, it all depends on, does he take care of his body like some of these other guys do? You look at Tom's turning 45 and he's still going. But again, Tom invests a lot into his body. The avocado ice cream. It's like he pretty much like only eats vegetables, like certain kinds. I think he's very minimal with his fruit intake just because of the sugars, and literally no junk food. So it's like, okay. And then we look at Big Ben. Big Ben was in the league 18 years. And, don't get me wrong. I ain't mad at Big Ben for his diet. I can't say much. I love me a good burger, probably a beer every now and again. But it looked like Ben has that a little bit more often than what Ben Roethlisberger should have. And it showed in his play.
Especially later in his career, too.
Exactly. Even Peyton, not saying Peyton wasn't a good athlete, but I don't think Peyton put as much time and effort into his body as someone like Tom has, as someone like Drew did. You don't have a lot of these guys like Eli, like Brett Favre, some of these, for lack of better terms, these corn-fed Midwestern boys that can just go out and play football for 20 plus years. It's you have better athletes. They're getting bigger. You're getting stronger. You have to be able to adapt and take care of your body that way. So, I mean, it's possible for Matt. Now, the real question is how does he do with his time in Indy? Because he may want to play 6 more seasons, but is he at that NFL level to continue to do that?
Yeah.
Because we've seen guys that's like, yeah, I want to keep playing. Okay, but are you still a starter?
Yeah,
Or
well,
do you still have starting capabilities?
Yeah, they asked Frank Reich about that, how there's been a different quarterback the last 4 or 5 seasons for the Colts, and and Reich said that he thinks and they're hoping that Ryan's going to be the guy that breaks that. And that's when they asked Ryan about it. And Ryan said, "Well, I see myself playing closer to 6 more years than just 1 season." And he said he feels great, and the way he talks, he really likes in Indianapolis so far. But yet, the regular season hasn't started yet either. So let's see how the games go. But if he can still, I mean, he put up good numbers last year in Atlanta. I know they didn't win games, but it wasn't all because it wasn't like it was because he was just playing terrible. He still threw, I think, 20, 21, 22 touchdowns and only 6 or 7 interceptions. It wasn't like he had a terrible year.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, coming to Indy, you got better run game. I think a better offensive line, better defense. But it's the receiving core. That's the one thing that I go back to on the Colts that just scares me. But when I was looking, they still have Paris Campbell, which we don't talk about much. But if that dude could ever stay healthy, I think he could really be a big weapon for us.
I think that's the thing is it's not necessarily that he's underperformed. It's just he hasn't been on the field long. And I think that's where people start to say, oh, well, he's not the guy we expected him to be because he's not on the field. And we've seen it, guys, some of it I think is just genetics. Some of it I think is just bad luck. It's like they just can't stay healthy. And it sucks to see because it does seem like he would be, a really good wide receiver if he did. So yeah, looking at Matt Ryan's stats, so he threw almost 4,000 yards last year, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions with the Falcons. They went 7-10. The year before that, he threw almost 4,600 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 picks. His last really good year with Atlanta, aside from the Super Bowl year, was 2018. He threw 4,900 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. So, I mean, he does still have the capability. But, yeah, like you said, he has a better defense now. He actually has a run game for the first time in a long time. I think he'll have a good offensive system behind him, which is kind of the other thing. I feel like Dan Quinn really neglected the offensive side of the ball there in Atlanta. And you see that a lot with defensive coaches. Look at Brian Flores. I think Brian Flores is a heck of a coach, but his offense sucks because he does not focus a lot on the offense, and he doesn't really get himself an established offensive coordinator to be able to basically run the offense. Like if Brian wants to run the team and kind of have a little bit more oversight on the defense, that's fine. But you got to get an experienced offensive guy that's willing to, help take the reins of the offense. Like, hey, I'm going to lead this like Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, you run the offense. I take care of everything else.
Now this year, Belichick's having Patricia and Judge battled out to see who's going to call the plays. That's kind of funny to me, but a defensive guy and a special teams guy.
The crazy thing when you said, they were 7-10 with Atlanta last year, I've seen quite a few of their games last year. They could have easily been, instead of 7-10, even though they wasn't a great team, they could have been 10-7. They lost a lot of close games last year. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. Well, last couple of years, they've lost quite a bit of close games because they're, especially last year, it seemed like they were real inconsistent because one game they would look real good, put up some numbers, and you're like, okay, the Falcons aren't too bad.
They got a lot of
see them the next week, and they look totally different.
They got a lot of leads. They couldn't hold on to them.
Yeah, and the bad part is and a few people have brought it up. It's ever since that Super Bowl loss. Since that Super Bowl loss, it seems like Atlanta has not been the same team ever since. And to me, it's not really Matt Ryan. No. Matt has still stayed consistent. Now he's regressed a little bit, but also so is the talent in Atlanta. They've tried to rebuild that offensive line. I think it was only really good for about 2 years. They don't have a running game anymore. They've been doing like one running back that happens to have a good year. That's about it. Wide receivers, they let go of Julio. They had Calvin, but now Calvin's suspended for a year, which that's its own issue that we could get into, much later. And he finally got a tight end in Kyle Pitts, but it's like, yeah, it was mainly that defense. That defense, they've got AJ Terrell, they've got Grady Jarrett, they've got Deion Jones. Like, they have pieces there that are available, but it honestly, it seemed like a lot of it was just coaching with Dan Quinn. It's like, once that Super Bowl happened, they blew the whole 28-3 lead. This has not been the Atlanta Falcons that I've honestly known for about the last 10 years. It was like Atlanta was always competitive. They were never one of those teams that you could take very lightly. They were almost always in the playoff picture, whether it was a wild card, even in the divisional. And
they're battling with the Saints all the time.
Battling with the Saints. They beat Green Bay. They beat Aaron Rodgers a couple times. So it's like this wasn't ever this wasn't ever a bad team with him at the quarterback position. It's just been since that Super Bowl that the Atlanta Falcons have just not been the same.
And that's why I think this might be a good change of scenery for Matt Ryan too.
Yeah, I think
get somewhere. Go ahead, Dad.
I was going to say, I think that's why they've got so much faith. They're having faith in the receiving core being young guys because Ryan's there. If it was a young quarterback, coming in, even one they had last year. I mean, he he'd been in the league for 2 or 3 years, but not near as many years as Ryan or the experience Ryan had. That I think that's why they have faith in this young receiving core. They think they got talent, but they've got the experienced quarterback to lead the way. So I think that's why they're pretty hopeful that they're going to do well this year.
Yeah, and I think Matt Ryan's a better leader than what Carson Wentz is as well. So I think if you're going to have a young receiving core, a guy like Matt Ryan or of course like Brady, Manning, guys like that are great leaders, it's easier to have a younger receiving core and for it to work. Or if you have a guy that's not a great leader, sometimes you can struggle. Which, like with Wentz, what was weird to me was like even when Hilton was on the field, it was like, oh no, it never seemed like that Hilton and Wentz connection got going.
Yeah, and honestly, if you kind of look at this wide receiver room compared to what they had, back when Rivers was the quarterback, like it wasn't a super great wide receiver room then either. And I mean, he still managed to take it to 10-6, 11-5.
Should have beat Buffalo in the playoffs first round playoff game.
Exactly. So it's like, again, that veteran quarterback can make a lot of difference. Like I said, I think with Carson was kind of the same as Matt. I think after that injury on that Super Bowl run, Carson is just so afraid of getting hurt again, which again, I get, because football, you don't have football forever. And that was a nasty injury to have to not only have, but then come back from and repair. So it's like, I get where he's hesitant, but kind of like you said, that doesn't mean that you have to completely, basically, stop being good.
Yeah.
You can adapt your play style. It's not like how, Andy Reid was so concerned about Vic. It's like, you're a great quarterback and you can play. And I get this whole, you can run and you can be dynamic, but you're going to limit yourself when you do that, because when you lose your legs, you're going to stop. You're going to have to be able to adapt your playing style. Yeah. And I think we also saw that with RG3, because RG3 was like,
and I think we're going to see that with Lamar Jackson as well. As when he starts losing some of that speed, he's not going to be the same guy unless he develops his passing game more.
Yeah, and honestly, I think for Lamar, it's kind of the same thing as here, where they don't have the receivers, but for Baltimore, the big thing has been, if you're a receiver going into that locker room, I'm going to have to block more than I am going to get big numbers and catch. Like, I'm going to have to run block for Lamar. And I don't know if Lamar will ever lose speed. I think he will if there's ever an injury. Like, if he ever gets any type of an ankle, calf, hamstring, something to that effect, that to me is what's going to hurt Lamar. But other than that, I think he can still do it. But again, we saw it with Kaepernick. Kaepernick got figured out about, 3-4 years in. That magic run was over. Like,
and I know we're talking about how we don't know how strong the receiving core is for the Colts, but I know I've been reading some articles and stuff. There's a lot of these national reporters and stuff that think the Colts receiving core is going to be fine and that the Colts are going to have a real good season. Some of them are guys that actually get to, and get to see practices and stuff. So, I mean, we might get surprised, hopefully, by this young receiving core. If we get somebody to step up on the other side, I think Pittman has the ability to put up big numbers. I really do. It just worries me if we don't have somebody step up on the other side. And at tight end now after losing Ogletree.
Yeah.
Because all the reports on Ogletree, they were real high on him and expected him to be a big part of the offense. And then now you lose him for the season.
Yeah. And like I said, I was surprised they didn't go after Julio a little bit more when Julio was available, just to at least be a red zone target. I don't expect Julio to be getting the separation downfield like he used to. But at least in the training camp videos I've seen of Julio, he can still go up and get the ball. Like, it at least gives you a big red zone target, if anything. And then, I was kind of shocked they didn't go after Amari Cooper. I kind of hope if he doesn't get signed by a team before, I kind of hope once, OBJ is able to be, come available, I think he'll add that, little bit of dynamic to the offense. And again, he would be complimentary for Pittman. OBJ's a bigger name, not saying he's currently right now, he's a better talent. And only because OBJ has been in the league longer, he's had more opportunities to prove it, whereas Pittman hasn't had that many opportunities to prove he's the guy yet. Yeah. So, I mean, you put him in there with that, I feel like that would be a good complimentary guy. It would take a lot of the number one corners off of Pittman because they're going to be focusing on OBJ. He's probably going to get more of the double team looks. It opens up your offense a lot more.
No, I agree. And with OBJ, now, if you had said that 5 or 6 years ago, I'd be like, oh, I don't want him.
Yeah, no. No.
Just because of his attitude and some of the stuff but when he went to the Rams last year, it was more of a backup role like that. He seemed to settle that down a little bit where he wouldn't be in this, he wasn't causing as many problems and stuff. And of course they were winning. Mm-hmm. So everything's better when you're winning. If you get in a losing situation, you never know. But yeah, I wouldn't mind if they got OBJ. I was kind of surprised, like you said, Cooper or Jarvis Landry. I was kind of surprised they went in the Jarvis Landry mix more.
Yeah, especially when he's a free agent. It's like, that would have been perfect. He'd have been going to a good franchise again. I think part of it is one of those, at least for Jarvis, the Honey Badger, a lot of these players, once you kind of get older, it's like, all right, I want to go back home and at least play for the home team for, a year or so, if I'm able to, type of deal. And I think that was both of them. They're both LSU Tigers. So, they got to go there and they got to play for, the Saints in New Orleans, which, New Orleans, I feel honestly is a lot like Indy. The only difference is, the Saints, their defense, I think, is going to regress a little bit because they've been poached in free agency really hard. They have a solid wide receiver room, but they have a lot of questions at quarterback too. Can Jameis stay healthy? Can Jameis potentially be the guy that leads them and, stop being a turnover machine? So really, yeah, I feel like New Orleans is just the southern version of Indy at this point as far as the talent and the capability that's there.
Yeah, I think, worries me about the Saints is just that is Dennis Allen as the head coach, just because the unknown between him and losing a guy like Peyton, just to see if there's a big drop off, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and Dennis Allen, he was the head coach for the Raiders, and it wasn't
good.
It was not pretty.
No, but he's been with Peyton all these years, so surely you would hope that he's going to do better this time because he has more experience. Been around a guy like Peyton. And I mean, like you said, they're in a pretty good situation. So it's not like he's walking into a dumpster fire as a head coach. He's getting to start a lot better than most head coaches do because most head coaches walk into a team that's not very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not making excuses for Allen, but the Raiders situation hasn't always been good.
No. It to me, and it's funny. I don't know how much of y'all watch Colin Cowherd. He pointed this out that you saw how good the Raiders used to be, and then Al Davis got older, and then it started to go down the toilet. As a Dallas fan, Jerry has also started to do the exact same thing. It's like it's not like they've ever been devoid of talent. It's not like people don't want to go there. It's not like people don't want to play and they don't have the fans. But it's like it's literally the crazy owner that still wants to do stuff that worked, back in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. It's like this doesn't work, 40, 50 years in the future now. This is not the same league that you had back then. Like you can't, and definition of insanity is to continue to do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I feel like that was Al Davis, and I feel like that's Jerry Jones. He's like, if I keep just throwing stuff, it'll stick eventually. No, Jerry, there's nothing sticky left on that. It's done.
That's what we've got a little bit lucky with Thursday. He's a little
Mm-hmm.
crazy and he'll say some outlandish stuff sometimes, but for the most part, he stays out of the media, and it don't seem like he's not always on a radio show talking about what his head coach needs to do and what the team needs to do. Now, after the season, like last year, you could tell he I don't know what happened between him and Carson Wentz, but he wasn't a Carson Wentz fan at all. And he's still talking about him. He was talking about Wentz last week after that preseason game.
Well, I don't know about y'all too, but it felt like a lot of it was just Carson didn't perform, and a lot of times it was you can only blame so much on the team before, yes, it is a lot of it on the quarterback play. You look at the game against the Rams. The Colts had the Rams beat. It was like if Carson would have stayed out there on the field, I think the Colts honestly would have won that game. And it's like, nope, we're going to, Carson's hurt, his ankles are hurt, whatever. We're going to throw Eason out there, and, Eason did okay for what he had to do. But, that ultimately cost the game, where it's like,
Oh, yeah.
And then, the very next week, Carson's like, yeah, I'm 100% fine. How did you go from 100%? Your ankles are done. You couldn't finish the game, but now you're 100%. No. And yeah, and if I'm Jim Irsay, I'm kind of thinking the same thing. It's like, you and the Colts had that stretch there for a while. They were the hottest team. They were one of the toughest to beat. I think they only had like 1 or 2 losses all the way up until the Jacksonville game. And it's like, okay, what happened? Like, the formula was there, and Carson, you literally fumbled. It's like, what happened? And if I'm Jim, it's like, I gave up basically a first-round pick for you because of how much you started, and this is what I got. And if I'm Jim, that's kind of where I'm frustrated. It's like, all right, I traded a first-round pick for you. I was hoping to get a potential quarterback of the future, and you go 9-8 and we miss the playoffs, and you have a great roster behind you. I don't understand.
I wonder if Irsay gave Reich as much say-so in who the quarterback was going to be this year when they were looking, because he basically let Reich make the choice the last 2 times with getting guys that Reich had worked with before in Rivers and then Wentz. So I wonder, since especially I don't think Rivers was a failure, because I thought, like I said, I thought they should have won that playoff game. I was actually hoping Rivers was going to come back from one more year and see what happened. But when we got Wentz, that would end up being a failure. And so with them 2 happening, I wonder if Irsay and Ballard kind of took more control on picking who the quarterback was going to be this year, and not taking his input as much as they were with the other 2 guys.
Chris, just to give you an update, Tennessee and Indiana's tied 1-1 in the bottom of the 4th. It's on ESPN2.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you said that, because I was sitting here, I had it on ESPN waiting on the game to start.
Indiana, they're in the bottom of the 4th. Indiana was up 1-0, but Tennessee scored in the top of the 4th on a wild pitch. So it's 1-1.
Little League baseball. You watch much of it, Tony?
I don't. That was the one sport I've tried every way in the world to get into baseball, and I can't do it. I have tried. Nobody in my family was really baseball fans, and obviously being here in Indy, it's like, all right, you have the Cubs, the White Sox. Which I don't think there's really any White Sox. I don't think White Sox fans exist. If they do, they're a very small, little tight knit community. Technically, we do have the Tigers, up in Detroit, but it's kind of a Detroit team. Yeah, we already know that's not going to end well. Or the Cardinals. So it's like, nobody was really a baseball fan in the family. I think I went to one Indians game at Victory Field. It was okay. It was just, and I've gone to a Nationals game out when I was out in DC for a few years, but it was like, I've never been able to get into baseball. I've tried everywhere in the world. I'm like, I can't get into it.
So I'm a big Cincinnati Reds fan. But I grew up playing baseball. I watched baseball with my dad and stuff too. So I love watching this Little League baseball. And there's a team from Hagerstown, Indiana, that's at the Little League World Series, and they're playing right now. They won their first game, so if they can win this game, that'd put them in decent shape in that double elimination tournament.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I did see one. I think it was an international Little League World Series earlier. I had to drive up to Carmel to do some telehealth appointments with some of my patients, and yeah, it was like Japan versus somebody.
Yeah, Japan got put out. This is the first time in like 30-something years that they haven't won a game at the Little
Really?
League World Series. They lost their first 2 games.
Yeah,
They're usually in the World Series championship game more years than not.
yeah. I think Japan is like the only country that has us like is right on par with us, if not has us beat when it comes to baseball. Like they love baseball.
Oh yeah.
Well, I read a thing. I know we're supposed to be talking football, but read a thing about the Japan Little League. They practice like 8 hours a day. I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost like a job for them little kids.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't imagine. I remember we practiced maybe hour and a half, 2 hours once or twice a week. I couldn't imagine practicing 8 hours a day of baseball, especially if it's 90 degrees outside.
Yeah, but hey, I mean, it pays off for them.
Yeah.
Especially if it's one of those, hey, you could potentially make millions of dollars from doing this. Yeah, suck it up for 8 hours for a couple years while you're young, and then tell me when you're about 21 and you're making about $50 million a year. Tell old dad how them eight hours a day sucks.
Oh yeah, that's what, especially these days. Even in football, any of the sports, you got to start young, and you really got to. I mean, with all the travel leagues and stuff, just to keep up with everybody, you almost have to do that stuff anymore.
Yeah, and it does suck because it doesn't let kids be kids. But like you said, it's a job. Like this,
and it also leaves out some kids that can't afford to. Parents can't afford to do the travel ball and stuff. It can hurt them kids.
Yeah. Like that's honestly why I wasn't able to get into a lot of sports. It was like, mom worked all the time. It was like, yep, nope, I can't. We don't have the money to go do a physical. I don't have the time. Like she's not going to get off. She doesn't have time to take me to the practices. Yeah. Like it's just not going to happen.
No, I got lucky there because Dad ran a wrestling team and a baseball league and stuff. So I got lucky on that part with sports. But I know what you mean because I know guys that have been real talented, but they just either didn't focus on it or they didn't have the parent support to kind of keep them going in the right direction.
Yeah, or they had too much. It's some of these kids. It's like, I don't enjoy doing this anymore. And it's like, I get it.
I've seen plenty of that too.
Mm-hmm.
You get some parents that try to live through their kid, and then that can turn into a bad situation.
Yeah,
you can make the kid hate the sport instead of loving it.
I had a buddy like that. He was he played defense and offensive lineman both, and he was good. Like I don't know how well Warren Central. That's where he went. Warren Central tried every way in the world to get him playing the football team. He's a big dude, and they're like, please, we'll do whatever it takes to get you on this team. No, I hate the sport. I'm never putting another set of pads on again. No,
because of his dad.
His mom and his dad both, and his mom loves football, and he's like, no, I don't enjoy it. I hate it. He goes, I hate that I got pushed that much into it. He's like, it hurts. He's like, I don't enjoy doing it anymore. I'm tired of getting hit in the head.
There's a fine line there because I coached my son a lot when he was younger. There's a fine line there of pushing. You want to push them, but you can't push them too much either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hey, I ain't gonna lie. There was times me and my son would butt heads at a wrestling tournament over stuff, but me and him, our relationship was cool on it because I'd ask him, "Do you want to go to a tournament?" If he said yes, we went. If he didn't want to go, we didn't go.
Yeah.
But now, if we went to a tournament, I expected him to give it his all. That's when we'd get into it. But he went out there, wrestle a bad match, didn't want to blame it on me or on somebody else. Like, no, you're the one out there wrestling. It ain't nobody else's fault.
Yeah, that ain't on coaching.
I ain't gonna lie, I wanted to choke him that day in the hallway. If Dad wouldn't have been there, I probably would have. Dad calmed me down. But what I was mad, and this is why I was mad. He had to wrestle that same kid later this is a national tournament. We traveled all the way to Michigan for. Mm-hmm. He had to wrestle that same kid later in the tournament for third place and beat the kid 8-0. Kid didn't even get close to scoring on him. But the kid beat us the first match because we was out there worried about everything but wrestling. I'm right. That's why you're laughing about it.
Yeah. Hey, I coached you when you was little. I understand. Coached him too.
Say, be honest. How many times did he do something similar like that where you're like, I'm a killing.
I can think of a few.
So his big one, and I had him up against the locker. People probably thought I was nuts. He wrestled this kid and probably beat him 15 times.
McNeil.
He wrestled this kid again, and that kid caught him in a headlock and pinned him. And Chris didn't want to get up and shake his hand. And I was angry. I didn't care that he lost the match. I mean, he got caught. It wasn't a big deal to me. But that kid, you beat him 15 times, and he was always a good sport, always got up and shake your hand. I don't lay there and cry, not get up and shake your hand because you made a mistake or you got pinned. It's over with. And I was very upset. I said, "Don't you?"
I remember that. Joe McNeil.
Don't you ever do that again? Yep, Joe McNeil. I said, "Don't." I mean, I don't care if you win or lose, but especially since it was a kid that was always a good sport.
Was he from Shenandoah?
Yep, Shenandoah. Yep.
That's what I thought. I've wrestled him like 30 times.
That's probably the only time I ever got mad at him when he was a kid wrestling. Probably the only time.
I remember that. Remember going after Austin. I remember when Jeff bit a kid.
Yeah, I remember that. And your mom about beat him to death.
My brother bit a kid when he was younger during a wrestling match. I guess he figured, hey, he wouldn't get in his way, so he decided I'd take a hunk out of him.
You say, I mean, that's a heck of a way to do anything you got to do to win, even if it means
that kid had roughed him up pretty good, and he come off the mat. I said, "Hey, you got to go out there and I didn't think he was gonna go out and bite him. I said, you got to go out there and you got to go out there and take it to him. You're down 7-0, just go after him." He boom, got a takedown, was on top of him, and I seen he was like rubbing his chin into him. I said, "What's he doing?" And all of a sudden the kid started screaming, and the referee stopped the match, and he said he bit him. I said, "He what?" He said he bit him. I said, and I looked, and you could see where he tried to. He had a mouthpiece in, so you could tell. But yeah, he had tried to bite him, and my wife took him to the ladies' bathroom, and
I remember that too.
Pull him up, and the old ladies coming around the ladies' bathroom scared to death because she's in there going crazy. And they would come back and sit down, and he's sitting on one side of me, my wife sitting on the other side, and she got mad and she was going to take him again. I said, "No, it's over with. You done whipped him. It's done. You whipped him again." I said, "That's over with." But I took my son down there to apologize to the boy and the dad, and then the dad started being a jerk. His dad was a great big dude. I mean, bodybuilder dude. And he started being, "Well, your son did that just because you know that he couldn't beat him." I said, "Look, man, we're just trying to apologize."
Yeah.
I said, "I'm sorry he did it." My son's saying he's sorry. We're just, he was wrong. I said, "We're just trying to apologize." And he just kept getting smart and stuff. Then next time Jeff wrestled him, Jeff beat him. My son beat him 15-0. So, but
yeah, I remember that guy too. He was always. I think he might have been on steroids actually.
He was a huge dude, man. He was massive.
Think he was juicing?
I think so. He was a big dude.
How's it going, Glenn? Glenn, he was actually at the Colts game Saturday.
Was he? Awesome. Okay.
He had good seats. He was like third row right there by the end zone.
Well, Glenn, what do you think of the receiving core right now?
I know Glenn he really liked how EHLINGER played because he messaged me that day and said EHLINGER looked real good. He said he looked like a future starter. I was like, well, I hope so because that's what we need. I mean, we might have Ryan for the next 2 or 3 seasons, but we don't know how long. And we don't know how he's going to play yet either. Yeah. I think the Colts are going to be a playoff team. I think the Colts are going to win their division
if they stay healthy.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is health because Tennessee. Even though I don't know how much you guys have watched Tennessee or how much you guys watched Arkansas, but Traylon Burks, he's got speed. They got a good wide receiver in him. But losing AJ Brown's a big deal because he not only was he was fast, he's a big target. And I feel like Tennessee honestly has regressed. Their offensive line got kind of picked apart a little bit. They lost Conklin to Cleveland a couple of years ago. They've had a lot of injuries. Now Derrick Henry is still a beast. I'm not gonna turn that down by no means. But they're I think in the same way of they're limited by Ryan Tannehill. We saw him in that game against the Bengals. He had an awful game, and it's like this was a Cincinnati team that they sacked Burrow 9 times.
9 times.
Yeah, it was like you
lost.
Yeah, and lost. And a lot of it was, Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. It's like if you get to a quarterback 9 times, you should typically have a good advantage over that team. But you can't. It cancels out if your quarterback's throwing 3 picks. And I think their wide receiver room is taking a little bit of a hit. Tight end, I don't feel like they've been the same since they refused to re-sign Delaney Walker. I felt like he was a very good tight end for them. He's a little older, but he was solid for them at tight end.
Yeah.
Defensively, I think that they have gotten a little better. But I think, and obviously Jacksonville's still going to be rebuilding. I would like Jacksonville in about a couple of years. If Doug Peterson can kind of get his system and put it in there, I think he made a lot of really good free agency signings this year that went unnoticed. You know, he got Brandon Sheriff from Washington at guard, so he upgraded his guard position. You know, you went out and you got obviously they signed Christian Kirk for a stupid deal. You got Evan Ingram, who I felt like he needed a change of scenery out of New York. You know, he's kind of an underrated tight end out of Ole Miss. I thought was a good signing move. So I feel like Doug has the potential. I feel like Jacksonville's excited because they have a real coach again for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I think they'll be better this year. I think they might be 1 or 2 years away from getting closer to their potential, but I do think they're going to be better this year. I think Trevor Lawrence, he very easily could have one of the best season out of any of the sophomore quarterbacks. I can see him having a big comeback year this year.
And then, you know, Houston I know is going to be a dumpster fire, and I hate to see it, only because I love Lovie Smith as a coach. I loved him when he was the head coach of the Bears. I thought he was fantastic. It sucked that they ended up letting him go.
I was surprised he left Illinois to go to Houston.
Well, he got fired from Illinois. That was the thing.
Oh, Illinois fired him. Okay.
Yeah, he was not good in Illinois. Illinois was they were competitive. Like they were better at the bottom of the Big Ten than they had been, but they were still a bad team.
Well, when you're a team like Illinois, well, even IU, we had one good season, but back now it's hard to compete against those bigger schools and stay there,
especially if you have any injuries at all. Because that's that's what killed IU that season. They were good. I think they could have been a little better, but you lose your quarterback. Then the next year you have a quarterback get hurt, and I think the running back got hurt.
Yeah, Penix. So that was COVID. You know, they held with it with Ohio State, all the way up till the end. Penix, he got hurt and then he transferred. I can't remember where he transferred to, but he transferred. And then, this year, quarterback got hurt again, running back got hurt. And, like Tony said, it's hard to stay with that because, not a whole lot of good recruits go to Illinois. They go to IU. They go to Michigan. They go to Ohio State. They go to Michigan State.
It's not going to get worse. I think it's going to get worse because the Big Ten's going to continue to grow and bring in some of these bigger schools that it's even going to be harder for some of them lower schools to get built back up.
Well, yes and no, because now, think about it before where, if you're IU, exactly, that IU win over Penn State, that was a fantastic game. I remember watching that. Whereas, before, if you're a kid in LA that you're pretty good at football, you're not thinking about Indiana. You're not thinking about Illinois. You're not thinking about, Iowa. You're not thinking about any of those. You're not thinking about Nebraska. Now, you get USC, you get UCLA, you potentially could get Stanford. You could potentially get Oregon, Notre Dame.
I think Notre Dame is going to be in there within the next couple of years.
I think so. Sam and I have talked about it on his show. I think Notre Dame will eventually do it because I think already they're going to force Notre Dame into those Big Ten game rotations again, like they used to before the Notre Dame decided they wanted to play the ACC for whatever weird reason. But I think they're going to do that. But I think the more states that you get open to, it's going to allow these kids to have more options. Like, okay, I'm not, maybe I won't get into the Ohio States, but, I don't really want to play for Oregon, but I want to go to the Big Ten because I know the Big Ten is going to give me good competition. Okay, let me go to Indiana because I could be a starter there, and I think they have really good potential. So
the NIL can help with some of that too, because now some of these guys might go play places just because they can make a little bit of money and get a chance to play than just sitting behind. Like, I think the days of Alabama having 5 or 6 deep of five-star players is going to be harder for them to do. Yeah. Some of these 4 or 5-star players now they can go play other places and still be able to get a little bit of money.
Yeah.
So I think in 4 or 5 years you'll see a little bit more parity in college football because of that. You'll see some of these guys go to schools like you said that they normally wouldn't.
Yeah, because now, I kind of look at, because now college is mimicking itself off of the NFL. That's the big thing I've always said with guys, like people ask, how much should they pay Lamar? And if I'm Lamar's agent, I'm going to do the same thing as if I would if I had, a college kid, that I'm, basically an agent for. Do you want to win or do you want to make money? Tell me which one you want to do. Now, maybe you find the sweet spot. You can do both. Like if you're that good of an athlete, you can go to Alabama, you can win a championship, and you can make a ton of money on top of it. You can go to Ohio State, potentially win a championship, make a ton of money. If not, okay. Do you want to go to, say, do you want to go to IU? Do you want to potentially make a lot of money in Indiana just because you're going to have those local businesses? You're going to be sponsored by them. Your name is going to be out there. Or, do you just want to go win a championship? Like, okay, do you want to go to Alabama, be the second string guy? Maybe you'll get some playing time. Maybe you won't, but you're going to get a ring out of it. And I think, same thing with the NFL. It's like, do you want to win a championship or do you want to be the highest paid? And I always bring it back to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers.
I knew that's where you was
Aaron
going.
Rodgers
I
makes
knew
a ton of money.
I knew he was going to bring Aaron Rodgers into it.
He doesn't have another dang ring since 2011. That's what Aaron Rodgers doesn't have. You know what Tom Brady did? Even though I can't stand Tom Brady either. You know what Tom Brady has because he's taking less money? He's got 7 flipping rings.
Yep.
Man, if the Colts would have just had a defense some of them years that we had Peyton, just think how many rings that could have been reversed between Peyton and Brady, maybe. A little bit. I'm not saying all the way, but at least I think we could have got at least a couple Super Bowls.
I don't ever know what it
in
was.
In the 1 year when of course now I can't think of his name, Tony Dungy.
Yeah.
When Dungy was the coach and we were almost undefeated, and that stuff happened with his son where his son passed away 2 weeks before the playoffs. That messed I still think we'd have won the Super Bowl that year if that wouldn't have happened, because when we came back, the team, it just wasn't the same. It killed some of our momentum, understandably. But, if that didn't happen, I think we might have won the Super Bowl that year. We should have won it the year that we lost to the Saints in the Super Bowl.
Oh, 2009?
I mean, there was some other years we had teams I thought was good. Well, the year that we won that beat Chicago, that wasn't the best team the Colts had.
No.
We had teams that were a lot better than that team that didn't win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, look how well Peyton played when he went to Denver, especially that first couple seasons. What if they don't blow up the team and Peyton comes back?
Yeah.
And that was the plan. Irsay changed his mind right at the last second, is what Bill Polian and all them have came out and said that the plan was that Bill Polian was staying, Manning was staying, and Irsay decided at the last second to change it all.
Yeah. But I will say I don't necessarily blame him because, again, you look at how Andrew Luck was in college. Yep. Like he was fantastic. It's like, I've still got Peyton. I'll probably I could potentially have Peyton for another 4 or 5 years, maybe.
But we gotta be honest too. Nobody knew if Peyton was going to come back, how he was going to be able to perform. It's easy to say now because we saw what Peyton came back and played at. He came back and played at MVP level.
But even then,
I can understand why he did it. But I'm not going to lie, I didn't want him to, because Peyton was my favorite player.
Yeah, but even then, if you look at a guy like Andrew Luck, like, hey, this could be our guy of the future. Do you ever say, man, I wish we wouldn't have taken Luck? It's like, it sucks. I don't think Luck ever got to live up to his true potential. No, because I feel like Luck could have potentially, now that Brady's out of the AFC, but now the AFC's also gotten a lot harder.
And we finally got an offensive line
to protect him. I feel like Luck could have been at least been vying for a ring again. He took him to an AFC championship at one point.
Yeah. I loved Andrew Luck too. He just couldn't.
Well, the year he retired, a lot of people were thinking we had a shot to go to the Super Bowl that year.
100%. Yeah, it sucks how it ended, and of course he ran into the buzzsaw that was Tom Brady and the Patriots. So. It got so old, though. I used to cheer. It was like, I don't care who's playing the Patriots. As long as the Patriots, I don't care at this point. As long as it's against Tom Brady, I don't care.
I was like that, too. And we finally beat them in that AFC championship game that year, and we were getting our butts kicked in the first half.
Yep. I remember that.
So like, here we go again, getting killed by New England playoffs, and we made a hell of a comeback in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
And then even in the Super Bowl, we give up a damn kickoff return
To Devin Hester for a
start the game.
touchdown. Yeah,
But,
that was another guy. I was upset he never got a ring. I like Devin Hester. I thought he was so good at kick and punt returns.
Oh yeah. I don't know why we kicked the ball to him.
No, I didn't.
Well, I've heard Dungey tell the story about it. He said the whole week they practiced doing kicks in the corner. They wasn't going to give Hester the ball, wasn't going to let him beat it. And he said the night before the team chaplain, they done this thing, and he was talking about David versus Goliath, and said the reason David won is because he wasn't scared and he went at him. So the Dungey next day told the team, "We're kicking it to him. We're going to hit him. They're going to know we mean business." They kicked it to him. He scored a touchdown. He said, "Well, that didn't work."
Mm-hmm. I mean, it still won. So I mean,
Yeah.
if it was one of those, if it would have cost him the game, I feel like he'd have been more upset. But considering they won, I feel like he'd be like, "Yeah, okay, it's not as bad."
But well, let's get to final thoughts. You got any final thoughts, Tony, before we get out of here for tonight?
Not that I can really think of. It's one of those we're kind of in that middle sweet spot of, it's like, a lot of these preseason games don't super matter.
Yep.
We're almost to the regular season.
About what, 20? I think about 20 days, 23 days, somewhere around there. I think before the Colts' first game.
About 20-ish days. I know for college, the first week 0 starts this weekend. I know the biggest game is Northwestern versus Nebraska in Dublin, Ireland. So I'm gonna be semi excited about that. But no, not that I can really think of. I don't really have a final take at the moment.
Dad, you got anything?
They're saying that this week the Colts are going to play the starters maybe the first half. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully nobody gets hurt.
I was going to say, hopefully no injuries. That's the only thing I really worry about in the preseason is injuries. I will be watching college football some this weekend, though, that and Little League World Series.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have no wrestling. Oh yeah, we do have a wrestling show this weekend on Sunday.
Yep.
Sunday I'll be doing live commentary at a pro wrestling show. So we'll watch much football Sunday.
Yeah.
But the only thing I got is we have another show here in about 10 minutes or so. Pro wrestling super fan Marcus Fine will be joining us. Talk about all the shows he's been to over the last couple weeks. I think he's been probably 8 or 9 shows over the last 2 or 3 weeks. Yep. So we'll talk to him. And then also tonight, if you're a pro wrestling fan, we have a big show announcement with DCCW. They're going to announce their next show, it's going to be big. Going to be some big superstars on there. So make sure you tune in. And I'll go ahead and make that announcement now too. Our live stream of the pro wrestling shows are also going to be live streamed on the All Sports All Plays network as well. So they'll be announcing that. So I don't want to say the date yet. So I'll say the date later, but you guys will know when the first wrestling show that will be streaming live on the ASAP Sports Network as well. You'll find that out. Actually, if you tune in at 8 o'clock tonight on the Gonzo Sports Room Network, you'll find that out. When we have that show with them. But hey, the first little over a week of this show, I think we've had pretty good numbers. So I appreciate everybody watching. And we'll see you guys Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and we'll talk some more Indianapolis Colts. I want to thank both Tonys for joining me, and we will see you guys Friday.
Yep, see you guys Friday.
Deuces.
Whole sports all plays. Yeah. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays.